With us today, we have Dan Paulsen. He's the new president and CEO of Principal Financial Group. We have Debi Durham. She's the director of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Dave Swenson, the associate scientist of economics at Iowa State University, and Jim Paulsen, the chief investment strategist for Wells Capital Management. And to kick things off today, and to begin answering that question for us about the effects in Iowa, I asked Jim to give us kind of an overview of some of the different factors that are out there that might have an impact here in Iowa this year. Then we're going to come back. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to answer a question to get their take on the Iowa economy in 2016. And then we're going to open up for questions from the audience. We're very lucky to have Jim here today. He came all the way down from Minneapolis to be with us. He's been quoted in a number of national publications and on TV as well in some of the national networks. If his name sounds familiar, it could be because he's been in the business record as well. Dave Elbert, our columnist, often has turned to him for economic advice over the years, and he shared that in his column as well. So please, if you would, join me in welcoming Jim Paulsen to the stage.
Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to come back here. I grew up here in a small farm town over by the Quad Cities, and I tell my kids if I were social media when I was here in high school, I never would have been able to come back today. Fortunately, they still let me in the state, so it's always good to come back. Let me just take a few minutes. I'll just throw out a couple different thoughts, some of the things that we're thinking about. One comment on this recovery, which has been somewhat unique, and then one comment maybe on what kind of we're thinking here about 2016. This recovery has been chronically disappointing. Chronically, maybe the worst ever post-war history has been chronically criticized, still is today. We've grown 2% at the start. We're still growing about 2% now in terms of the overall growth rate of the recovery. That's despite the most massive economic policy stimulus persistently devoted to this recovery. Zero interest rates, quantitative easing, deficit spending, a lot. So why is it? Why is it we're stuck in this unprecedented low growth rate? I think the idea has been behind stimulus that we're trying to resurrect demand, which has been made weak by you guys messing up the balance sheets, not saving enough for life. I think it hasn't worked because our primary problem in the United States is supply. And what I mean by that is really the problem that we face is you all got old. And I gotta tell you, there's a little evidence. There's a little evidence of that too when I look out today. But I think aging demographics is what's really causing the issue. We have, in this recovery, the working age population in the United States has grown 0.75% a year, which is less than half its pace in post-war era because of aging demographics. And not only are you guys the oldest population we've had to deal with economically, but you're also the least productive members we've ever had. Productivity in the United States in this recovery has grown 1.25% per annum, which is way lower than any other post-war recovery. So you guys are both old and unproductive. It's not a good combo. But if you put those two together, 0.75% labor supply growth, 1.25% productivity, what do you get? You get 2% growth. And I think that's where we're going to be. The only reason I point this out is we're not going to do a lot better. I think we might get up to 2.5%, 2.75% growth. That's it because the restrictions on supply. And until we allow immigration to change that, it won't change very much. And since we're going to build a wall around the country soon, that's probably not going to happen very quickly either. But here's the point. Even though we're only growing a little over 2, I don't know. You know, we got more people employed right now than ever before in our history. This country. The unemployment rate's down to 5% nationally, which is lower than 2/3 of the time in post-war history. We've got nominal GDP, personal income, household net worths are 25% higher today than they were at the previous all-time record at the end of the last recovery. We've got corporate profits at record highs, got stock market with 10% of record highs. So at a minimum, this may be the most disappointing recovery ever, but it's got to be the most successful disappointing recovery ever. In other words, even if it's a slow grower, we're going to start our 8th year of recovery this summer. That will be the 3rd longest recovery in U.S. history. And there's a lot of good stuff going on in the grid. while we're constantly criticizing how bad this recovery is. That's the only thing I'd say about it. A lot of profits have been made, a lot of jobs have been had, a lot of things are being bought while we constantly criticize why it isn't working. I think it's got a good shot of continuing for several more years. On 2016, I think, to me, the biggest thing, we've been unable in this recovery to get all the economic boats going in the same direction at the same time. We came out of the 08-09 crisis, and all the economies recovered, but then very quickly on, while the United States chose quantitative easing and pushing upward, Europe went to fiscal austerity, which put their economy right back into recession. China, in late 2010, early 2011, decided it was growing too fast and they needed to moderate its recovery. So it started to tighten. I can report today that they were successful in moderating their recovery. So we've never been able to get them all going north. I think this year we might. We're not going to get rapid growth in the world, but I think we're going to bounce all the economies at the same time. And the reason is because in the last year we have synchronized economic policies across the globe for the first time in the recovery. In the last 12 to 15, 18 months, we've given everyone around the globe a massive fiscal stimulus in the form of a 50% reduction in commodity prices, like a tax cut. There might be 3% of the world that lives off commodity prices. This might be one of the places that's very sensitive to that. But the other 97% of the economy in the world buys this stuff. And it's just a huge fiscal stimulus in the form of tax cut. Sovereign bond yields have collapsed all over the globe. They've collapsed here in the United States, they've collapsed in Europe, they've collapsed in Japan, they've collapsed in China. A huge monetary stimulus over the last 12, 15 months. And then the U.S. gave everyone else, just because we're nice like that, a major currency weakening stimulus. We gave everyone a 20% devaluation because we care about others. And if you think about that trio of stimulus, massive fiscal stimulus, massive monetary stimulus, massive currency stimulus, I think the odds are we get a bounce from China to Europe to Japan to the United States. Not runaway growth, but a bounce. And the current recession fears that envelope the mindsets, I think, fade away as the year progresses. And what we end up worrying about more than anything is how fast the Fed's going to raise interest rates. So we'll see if any of that works out. Happy New Year.
All right. Another big round of applause for Jim for doing that for us. So just before we ask the first question, remember this is a Q&A, so after this first question or two up here, we're going to open up for questions, so make sure to be thinking of those. One thing I do ask, you'll see a couple mics out there in the stands, please make sure to utilize those as well. It's a big room, so we want to make sure that everybody can hear your question. So to start things off, we're going to start all the way down here on the end with Dan. Our first question, in 2016, do you think the Iowa economy is going to improve dramatically, improve slightly, remain about the same, regress slightly, or regress dramatically, and then of course why?
I think it's going to actually remain about the same. I don't see the reasons out there that would significantly move. You know, a lot of people have a misimpression about Iowa, and certainly people that are coming to our state here in the last 6 months have been maybe better informed. But in spite of being one of the greatest agricultural states, agricultural regions in the world, it still represents about 7% of the economy. Insurance is kind of 6 or 7%, finance is kind of 6 to 7%, manufacturing is kind of closer to 12 to 15. And as I said to a Bloomberg report the other day, one of the things we're very blessed with here in Iowa is a very diversified economy, quite different than Houston and other parts of the world. So we have that going for us. I said the second thing we have is a very, very talented labor force. As a matter of fact, that's one of the top concerns that I have is that we run out of labor, that we just don't have people to step into some of these really new jobs that require different skill sets than what we've had in decades in the past. And then lastly, what I would say is we are a large exporter. Very few people realize, if you look at that TPP legislation, 51% of the Iowa products and services are actually exported. There's 170,000 people employed in Iowa that are tied directly to TPP. There's 40 million around the U.S., so we are a large exporter, more than just ag products.
I think it gets a little better, in part for a couple of reasons. I think commodity prices are going to find a bottom here and have a pretty good year after having a miserable 18 months. I think if you look at the history, we look at this commodity collapse as though it's really scary, because why are we having such a collapse of commodities in the middle of an economic recovery? But historically, this is the third recovery in the last 4 in the United States, dating back to the Carter recovery in the late 70s, where we had a collapse in commodity prices like this one, right smack dab in the middle of the economic recovery. In every previous case, commodities, once they bottomed, the recovery lasted for several more years after the bottom, in every case. And actually, the economy accelerated, and commodities snapped back pretty hard. They didn't recover at all, but they snapped back pretty hard, pretty fast. Oil prices typically have V-shaped bottoms once they find a bottom, and there's been about 6 others of those since 1980, and on average, they rise almost 80% within 12 months of the bottom. So I think we're going to get a fairly decent move up in commodity prices, but more importantly, what that will do, to your point, I think, is stabilize manufacturing. So to the extent that's a little bigger part of both agriculture and manufacturing, I think if we stabilize and bounce that a bit, I think it's going to feel better here in Iowa, certainly over in North Dakota and Texas, but I think Iowa as well.
Debbie?
Well, I'm slightly optimistic. I think we're going to see a slight, do I have to do something? Okay. I think you're going to see a slight improvement. And, you know, I think you'll see around a 2.5% growth rate, you know, net of inflation. And though we have all the concerns we talked about with commodity prices, and I concur with you on that, strong dollar hurting our exports, you know, we're going to be off probably 20% when the books are closed on 2015 after a record year of 2014 in exports. But the bright spots I see are this. One is it is a diversified economy. The insurance and finance platform, as Dan very well knows and can speak better than I, is very strong. Granted, the manufacturing, particularly in the ag part, is very sluggish, and we've shed a lot of jobs, but I begin to see some stabilization in that. But the thing that I think is a real bright spot for Iowa is really this innovation entrepreneurship platform, right? And what we're seeing here that's occurring there, both in research that's coming from the university for commercialization, but certainly what is starting with our small businesses as people look at other options. So that's why I believe we're going to see a slight increase. And I think there's some new initiatives that we're going to talk about that we're really looking towards what are the future plays for Iowa that can really begin to even further diversify that economy.
Dave?
I'm going to play off, oh, that's way out. Put it down there. There we go. I'm going to play off of what's already been said here. The diversified economy is an asset that we are really, really blessed with, plus our diversified strengths, agriculture, manufacturing, finance, healthcare, education. All of those are very, very strong assets in the state's economy. We don't swing up and down like we used to 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have some countervailing forces, and so that works to stabilize. The ag economy feels a little bit weak right now. Commodity prices are low, but everything involved with agriculture is baked into the economy. They are going to put in a crop. Every relationship is already there. All of the upstream and downstream relationships are already there. All of that says that there's nothing out there that's wanting to pull our economy one way or the other. What really matters, what I try to pay attention to when I talk about the economy, is our economy depends on how well everybody else is, not so much how well we are. They buy what we sell. So the rest of the United States, the rest of the world buys what we sell. Are there things that keep them from buying what we sell? Well, we already talked about this, the low commodity prices. Right now, everybody who's buying anything has more discretionary income, if you're at the household level or if you're at the producer level, than they had just a year ago. That in and of itself is beneficial to the economy. We flip it around though, high value of the dollar. We export a lot of what we produce here, and that limits or hinders our ability to grow. So there's weakness on the export side, there's weakness on the potential for manufacturing to grow. Manufacturing recovered a nice rate for a bit, and then it just fizzled out. And it's not going to get back to what it was in 2008. And what we worry is that it's going to be the long-term trend of starting to go down again. We still produce as much goods or commodities, we just need less labor to do that, and it's not expanding. My outlook for the year is kind of like last year, just kind of like last year. It's going to be a stable, slow, steady. The unemployment rate isn't going to improve that much more, a little bit more. There's no other thing in the economy that's going to drag us out or up. So that's my best guess.
Question is for Debi Durham. As you know, we've been blessed in the city of Des Moines to have great economic development. And one of the tools that's made that possible has been the historic tax credit because of the number of buildings that have been rehabbed. We're concerned, number one, that we want to make sure that that tool continues to be available. There have been some problems with it, and I know that there are a number of people in this room that would love to hear from you as much as possible what you see the future of that program and that we're getting it on the right track. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Chris. What I can tell you, the future of the historic tax credits is it's going to be strengthened. And it needs to be strengthened because it's a great tool, and it's great to see it being used in the urban centers, but it is also one of the most valuable tools we have in the rural areas. We were fortunate enough to run the Main Street program out of Iowa Economic Development Authority, and when you look at places like Woodbine and Bloomfield, and the list goes on and on of the transformation that has happened in their city cores because of transforming these buildings. And many of them are being, like in Denison, used for global IT companies, right? So that the makeup of the Main Street looks different, but it is the transformation of these buildings that have really allowed people to dream and to attract. So Director County, who has been responsible for the program, the governor empowers us as directors to come together. You're going to be seeing very short order a collaboration between Department of Cultural Affairs and Department of Economic Development, and I think it'll be a dividing of duties. We do what we do well, they'll do what they do well, and I think the market will respond very favorably to that, because we believe it is a critical program to continue.
Questions from the audience?
I'd like to thank you for coming here today and sharing your expertise. I'm Jackie Johansson with R&R Equity Partners, and we're seeing more investments come into Des Moines and come into Iowa from outside of Iowa, from outside the Midwest, from coast to coast, bringing their investment dollars here to Iowa. Now we're starting to see more and more come to Iowa from international shores. My question is, with the change in the economic forecast that you're talking about for the next year, this small amount of growth, do you see the direction of that investment flow coming into Iowa changing?
We'll start with Debi first, and then we'll maybe bring up this one.
I actually see it increasing, to be honest. So for instance, I think I told you last year, and this has not changed, the European market is still very strong for us, particularly even in the German market, that they're looking for new outlets, and they look at America as a good place to invest, which is a good thing. We're starting to see more direct foreign investment come from China. That's been very, very slow coming, and I think that's going to be more, if you will, acquisition-based versus starting something new. And we're actually beginning to see more in our pipeline from direct foreign investment from Japan that we haven't seen for a while. Obviously we landed in Osage, that big Valent Bioscience, 2 years ago, but we're starting to see that turn around as well. So I think you're going to see more. I think there'll be smaller projects, though. I'm going to manage expectations that you're not going to see the real large projects that we've been able to land the last few years. There'll be smaller manufacturers. A lot of them are going to be family-owned manufacturing, which is part of that delay in decision-making. It takes a little longer when it's family spending their money, and many of them are doing it with cash to make these investments. But I think you're going to see some nice announcements from us from direct foreign investment in the next year.
Watch closely the Greater Des Moines Partnership. You got to give a lot of credit to Jay and Gene for getting the word out there. I know many of you were probably in attendance the other night at the partnership dinner, and there was a scrolling of all of the recognition that's been bestowed upon Des Moines and across Iowa for being a great place, not just to live, but to do business. And our good friends at Wells would know this, but Iowa was the only state in the country that 51% of the mortgages that were placed this past year were by what generation? Millennials. Think about that. You can come to Iowa and for $170,000, $180,000 still get very affordable housing with a good job, low cost of living. And so those are the kinds of stimulus that would have caused, I think in the case of R&R's case, Jackie, the desire to want to locate here and make investments here and run your business from Iowa. So you got to have macroeconomics winds blowing at your back, ideally. You got to have access to a great talent pool. You got to get that check mark. And then ultimately, I think you have to have innovative ideas, and you have to have people that want to grow businesses. And Iowa has a lot of that going for it.
And just real quick, I guess my guess is it might slow a little bit. The only reason I say that is because I think that the United States has been looked at as a beacon in this recovery, in a globe which can't get going in this recovery. And if you're investing, it's one of the few places you could maybe see some growth prospects that you couldn't see in other markets. I think in the rest of this recovery, we're going to have international markets doing better than the United States. And that may keep capital at home, might even flow it out of here. In addition to that, one of the great advantages you had coming here was a very weak current dollar. You could buy up assets pretty cheaply. That's been reversed too. I think both of those may lead to a little slower trend.
Dave, you must have thought on that.
Which part?
Iowa's growth and just capital covered, does it lead?
Well, one of the things we know is that it's not my fault. One of the, are we live here? Okay. One of the things we know that most of the capital formation that's going on in the state of Iowa is going on in its metropolitan areas. There's an incredible desire to invest in these growth pockets. We have other parts of Iowa where there's not that much investment going on. We've had our investment, and that investment is maturing. And finding new areas in the state, it's not whether it's going to grow or not grow relative to years past or not years past. Investment's going to occur nonetheless. Where is that investment going to occur? What are going to be the categories? I look outside and go out in here and I see investment all over the place on a micro scale. Not on a macro scale, on a micro scale. And our economy, I will just give you an example, an indirect indicator. In the United States, we peaked in construction jobs. I use it as an indirect indicator in 2008, and then they crawled back and they're only at about 50% of recovery. Iowa construction is beyond what it was in 2008. They're hurting for construction workers. We're benefiting, whereas the rest of the nation isn't benefiting. So to a degree, we're doing okay on that line. We have parts of the state, though, that aren't doing okay. There's complete underinvestment or disinterest in investing, and most of that is our rural space. And we have examples where things are successful, but we have many, many more examples on a spatial basis where things aren't successful. We're blessed here, we're blessed in Iowa City, we're blessed in Ames with regard to robust growth. The rest of the state's not growing so well.
You mentioned something along the lines of workforce, and I had asked you what the impacts are as we drain some of the. We had taken a look at the way the population had shifted, and we're draining some of the talent from some of the smaller cities into the metro areas, and I was asking you what the impact could be longer term of something like that.
Yeah, they're mislabeling what's wrong. There's nothing wrong with our workers. Our workers know how to work. They know how to go to school. They know how to get trades. They know how to get trained. You mentioned it before. We have this labor gap. A lot of our skilled labor migrating out of our more rural areas, especially what we call the older young, 35 to 44. Metropolitan areas outbid the rural areas or the micropolitan areas for that labor. And we've had a consistent flow of that talent out of the rest of Iowa into our metropolitan areas, into neighboring metropolitan areas. And it's depopulating, and it's resulting in a talent gap out in lots of rural Iowa, but to the benefit of places like Des Moines, where 51% of the Gen Xers are getting their mortgages and everything else. And so what we have is advantages, labor force advantages accumulating to about 5 metropolitan areas, And then a lot of the state of Iowa is struggling to maintain their labor supply and labor diversity. That really has an impact on our ability not to grow on the state average, but our ability to grow in non-metropolitan areas. And that's one of the areas that I have to pay attention to. Coming from rural areas, it's coming from micropolitan areas, it's coming from, but we're also in competition with the rest of the Midwest. We are in competition with Sioux Falls and Minneapolis and Omaha and Kansas City. And we have to up our game because they're better at taking our college-trained talent than we are at getting their college-trained talent up here. And that's one of the things that we're wrestling with. As the economy continues to diversify, as the range of employment opportunities shifts away from the dominance of agriculture and manufacturing, more towards a broad range of services, you're going to see those industries be more competitive on a regional basis.
Agritourism business that's going on. So yes, we grow commodities and we do cash crops, but at the same time we can say that we can do a 50-acre plot to grow lavender, or we can grow hops, or we can do, we were having a conversation whether we should grow hemp, because we grow everything, right? But the point is that so you're seeing more and more young third generations actually coming back to the farm. They're doing micro dairies. So we're seeing some incredible micro enterprises that are encouraged because people want the lifestyle still connected to a commercial center. And so then it's a case, maybe they are traveling or one spouse is traveling in to an urban center, but if they're still, residing in the rural area and contributing other ways. My point is, and when I see what's happening in these small main streets, when things are being transformed, upper story housing is getting filled by millennials, or actually for those that the season of their life that are saying, I don't want a big house, I want to live downtown. So I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see that. And the other reason I think it's different, if you look at our portfolio, and the one reason that we're so strong in construction is because we have a $12+ billion portfolio going on, and we only touch 25% of the construction projects. And so if you think about that, that's got long tails. Where is most of this happening? It's happening in the rural areas. We're building around the ethanol and biodiesel facilities, and when we pass our biochemical, all of that is going to occur more in the urban or the rural area. So I think it's slow, but I see encouragements out there, and I see encouragements in more spots than not. So I guess in 5 years, it'll be interesting. We'll have a conversation
I'm going
about
to
that.
pop in here, places in Iowa that are depopulating. The other problem is, it's not necessarily a problem, it's a reality. Manufacturing and agriculture every year is going to use fewer and fewer workers to make the commodities and products that they produce. And their demand for labor is continuing to go down. Now, what we do at Iowa State, or what we do in community development, instead of trying to bolster everybody, we try to focus, my partner who I work with, we try to focus on these regional trade centers. We've got about 40 of them in the state of Iowa. Places that are employment centers, they're service centers, they have hospitals, they have lawyers and doctors, and they have engineers. And what we want to do is stabilize these core, they're from 5,000 up to 35,000 economies, to try to maintain that livability, to try to maintain that stability, and to try to, we're not talking about reviving, we're talking about stabilizing our rural space. Rural development now isn't about rural growth net, it's about rural stability into the future. And telling places out there, you know what, it's okay not to grow, you can still be a good, strong, vibrant, and healthy community, even if you're not growing.
I wonder from the workforce standpoint, and with unemployment rate continuing to drop, especially in the metro, are you seeing any pressure on wages at all? I know that's something that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, unemployment in Iowa is about 3.3%, something in that range. Even during the depths of the recession, we kind of got unemployment up to kind of 6.6, 6.7, while the rest of the country was at 10. And there was a comment from the stage earlier. We do run a very stable economy in Iowa. Our housing doesn't go up or down by great magnitude. Our wages don't go up by a great magnitude. Our cost of living doesn't go up by great magnitude. All of those allow us to do our appropriate benchmarking. And I'd be surprised if I saw wages go up more than, say, 3 to 4% this year, 3.5%. And I think the pricing in most products and services would allow you to get there, in part because of the adjustments you're going to make on productivity, which was mentioned on more than one occasion. It's happening in every part of manufacturing, servicing, technology, and offshoring have offset any sort of inability to be at the insulting comments, Jim, that you made about this great audience today about their age and their lack of productivity. Technology has enabled this people group to be contributors to society in some significant way. I'm teasing. But in all seriousness, that has been the offset to the rising cost by having a more productive environment. One comment that's worth sharing with the group: if you did the math this past year with the reduction of gas prices from its high, it put $100 billion into the pockets of of Americans. And there's one of three things that they could do with that money. One is they could spend it. Two, they could pay down debt. Three, they could save it. And this is one of the first times I can remember this sort of recovery, that they're either saving it or they're paying down debt. We're seeing debt drop dramatically, which I think is a great thing over a long period of time. We got to be working and chipping away at that, as opposed to consuming. We are very unique relative to China. Here we have retail consumption representing 70-75% of our economy. The other half is business, commerce, and government. You take China, they're just the opposite. And as those Chinese come online and they start turning that economy over where it's 70% consumption for retail, and it will get there eventually, it will definitely shift the center of retail commerce to the east.
Just make a quick comment on wages and cost. I think we've had a recovery where there's been no pressure on business cost, or wages, or interest rates, or any of that. I think if this recovery persists, we're going to start dealing with that. And it's going to become a much more noticeable focus. And it's almost forgotten. We're going to cut for so long and not have to worry about it. Rates never go up, inflation never goes up. Cops say, I think it's going to become more and more of an issue. And maybe it's for the best. I think wages before this recovery get over will be, they've been stuck at 2%, now they're at 2.5%. I think they're on the way to 3.5-ish in that ballpark. And I think the 10-year Treasury will get over 3%, 3 to 4 eventually during this recovery. It'll be a new phenomenon of dealing with higher costs. But maybe that's for the best, because what it will do is draw more and more attention to, I think, a real labor shortage that we have in this economy, and a skill shortage, not just in the state of Iowa or Minnesota, but everywhere. And I do think that's going to be a good thing. Maybe it'll force us to address those issues.
I think just 2 comments to that. I think the first is, I think it's going to be barbell. I think the skilled labor on the high end is going to get that sort of wage inflation. I think on the other end, we're not necessarily going to see that sort of wage inflation. That's one data point. The second is that our cost of a labor unit may in fact not go up at the same rate as the increases, because I think productivity, offshoring, and technology will keep that down. So our actual total cost may stay about the same in spite of your best talent getting increases that might be upwards of 3.5%, 4%, or 5%. That'd be my take.
One question before we're going to move to the final question here as well, but I did want to make sure the Fed kept the interest rate the same yesterday. Just curious what your thoughts are moving forward through the rest of the year and what we might be able to expect here.
On the Fed?
Yeah.
Fed's a little like the presidential election. I get pretty darn tired of it myself. I think we give them far too much attention for what they're worth. I think the reality is, if the economy picks up, the Fed will be tightening, and if it doesn't, they won't. It seems like whether they meet or not, that'll be the outcome. But there'll be a lot of volatility, regardless of the markets, as a result of all these meetings. I myself think we're going to bounce a little bit. We're going to bounce. We're going to eliminate these recession fears that are now kind of burgeoning up. And if we do that, Wall Street will have to adjust, and that'll include the Fed. I still think there's going to be multiple rate increases this year. That's my guess. Right now, no one thinks there is, but I still think there is, and I think bond yields get in the game as well. Good news is the stock market. I think around 1,800 here, below 1,900, starts to become more compelling again after about a year and a half of not being. It's down to a lower multiple, about 16, 17 times. I think that's a more compelling point, even if rates have to go up somewhat. But I think we're going to end the stock market roughly flat where we started it. But from here, that'd be almost a 10% return now if you buy it from here. So I don't think that's too bad. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 10-year Treasury's got a 3 handle on it rather than a 2 handle on it by the end of the year. So we'll see.
I'll take that bet.
Before we finish, I'm going to give each of the panelists an opportunity to give a final takeaway for you to take home today. Just a couple of things I want to let you guys know about coming up for us in the future. First is, I've got a whole sheet of questions that I couldn't possibly have asked up here. We don't have enough time for that. Our staff's been working really hard on putting together an economic forecast issue, which is going to be out on Friday as well. In that, we're going to have questions, 13 different questions to different experts and economists in the state. We're also having asked them to identify some potential threats that are coming up in the new year. We've got more than 30 different people, all in business in different industries, providing their takes on what the economy might be like on their industry as well as the results from our survey. Take a look, check it out. If you're a Business Record member, make sure to get that. If you're not a member, of course, we'd love to have you. You can sign up on our website. We also have 2 daily e-newsletters that we do as well. Those are free. Those are open for anybody. It's a rundown of all the news that's happening in the business community twice a day. It's a great way to stay plugged into what's going on throughout the course of the day. Also upcoming, I want to let you know about one of our upcoming events. It's our Power Breakfast, first one of the year. We're going to be taking a look at education. And that's, of course, a hot topic right now. And we're taking a look at it from the business community side. How can business help lend a hand in there and helping ensure that our future workforce is going to be highly educated and the education system is going to keep producing that talent that we need in our businesses. So we've got a great group of panelists for that. David Wilkerson from Waukee is going to be there. They've done some innovative things out there. They were on the cover. He was on the cover of the Business Record just a week or 2 ago. We'll also have Mary Bontrager, the Executive Vice President for the Great Des Moines Partnership. Mark Jacobs, he's the founder of a newer organization here. It's actually based in West Des Moines. It's called Reaching Higher Iowa. He's the former CEO of Reliant Energy as well. And then Ryan Wise, who's the director of the Iowa Department of Education. It's going to be a great event, and you can sign up on our website, businessrecord.com/events. You guys have had time to think about it. We'll start down with Dave and let you give the final, your final takeaway.
My final takeaway in general is that I like the Iowa economy. I like what it's doing. I like how it is. I like its workforce. We've got advantages here that are just superior, and the outlook looks reasonably good. That's about it.
That's very positive.
I am positive.
It's very positive for you, Dave. Okay, so you did ask one question that we didn't get to, so I'm going to answer it. You know what keeps me up at night? And I'll tell you what keeps me up at night. 2016, mark my words, will be the year of merger and acquisitions. And how Iowa fares in that is yet to be told. We went through the Kraft Heinz recently. The one that is obviously in the news today is the Dow DuPont Pioneer. We will know in very short order how we fare in that. So those are challenging and exciting times all at the same time. So that's what we have to deal with, and you're going to be seeing more and more of those on the horizon. The things I'm excited about, though, that I think are future plays for Iowa are several things we're working on. One is the biochemical. Since we've already invested in infrastructure for ethanol and biodiesel, we should basically gain greater value from that and harvest chemicals, think like a petroleum company. That piece of legislation is making its way through the legislature now. I believe it will pass, very bipartisan. The other thing, like I said, you're going to see an increase in entrepreneur and innovation activities, and you're going to see more investment dollars come in due to some of the funds, and Craig is here. He's got one of those funds, so we're going to see more venture money in Iowa, which is a good thing, something we've been missing. And the other thing is you're going to see more and more initiatives come out about women and how to engage women more, not only in the entrepreneurial activities, but investing. Ernst & Young says women are the largest emerging market. And so last year I told you that we're going to start a women's investing club that will get launched this year. So stay tuned, and we're very excited about that. And of course you're going to see some great opportunities for us in precision medicine, what's going on at the University of Iowa, and some smart manufacturing and additive manufacturing. So there's a lot coming in the pipeline that makes me very bullish on the Iowa economy long term.
Jim? About Iowa, I just think nationally, one thing I'd say is the whole premise of this recovery to me has just been sort of chronic fear that we're headed for the Great Depression at any moment. And I think a lot of people in business and certainly in investment portfolios have missed out because of that fear. in one way or another. Too conservative, not enough thought of the future because it was going to end tomorrow. I still think that's there in this recovery. I think, I don't know for sure, but I think there's good odds this thing maybe it's only half over, or maybe a little more than half, but not much. And multi-year left in this recovery, even if it's slow. That's one reason it could last a long time. And that there isn't the normal excess at this point. No one's over-borrowed, no one's over-lent, no one's wiped the liquidity off their balance sheet yet. There hasn't been excessive activity in almost any industry, but maybe energy, which is being liquidated and refreshed. I think it's got probably longevity. And if it does, you can think about that in terms of your business or in terms of your portfolio. For Iowa, the novice in being in Iowa, the only thing I wonder about with the aging demographic and the lack of skills is going to be a huge issue. Why can't Iowa feast on the ability of it to have one of the best education results in the whole country? It seems like that is going to become more and more valuable as the skill rarity becomes a bigger issue in the next several years.
I guess two comments. One deals with kind of the macro economies. It deals with the volatility we've seen in equities, and I'll come to the Iowa comment in just a second. When you look at Dodd-Frank and the impact it's had on large banks and large financial institutions, and when I think about the emergence of the ETFs being traded throughout the day, I don't think anyone should ever get comfortable with the fact we're going to go back to the good old days with low volume of stock trades, or that we're not going to have a lot of volatility. I think this is our new normal. At the same time, that shouldn't cause people to be so short-term or start market timing. It's just something we need to get comfortable with, that you stick with your investment strategies for the long term. That's more of an editorial comment. The second relates to Iowa. I get a chance to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, population 26 million. I go to Beijing and Shanghai and a lot of different places, and then look at New York and San Francisco and LA. And I never am quite certain how they ever organize their resources to accomplish things on a local basis, because it's almost unwieldy and very, very difficult to manage. I think one of Iowa's competitive advantages is we're small enough to be nimble to get things done, and we're big enough that we have enough resources to accomplish it. And I think the mindset of Iowans is we're going to exhaust a lot of different ideas, but in the end, we always do the right thing. And you know that's a famous quote from Churchill. And I think that gives us a competitive advantage. We have good schools, we have good work ethic, we have our low cost of living. And so I think Iowa, my hope is Des Moines and parts of Iowa can be a little bit more like in Austin. You still embrace the youth and dynamicness of a city like that, but at the same time get some very serious work done. Very optimistic.
A big thank you to our sponsors, and then can I get a big round of applause for our panelists? Thanks everyone again for coming. Again, my name is Conetzkey. We're here to help you guys do business better. Never hesitate to reach out in my direction if you need anything.